Dr. Evans, does health insurance usually cover a clinical trial?
That's a great question, and maybe I can step back and give a little bit of a primer on clinical trials, and then answer the question specifically. So,
Sure.
as I explain to our patients, a clinical trial really is usually a newer treatment, and it's a treatment that your doctors think is great. So, as I explain this to our patient, every clinical trial that we have open here at the Medical College of Wisconsin is a clinical trial that I would enroll in myself. And even more importantly, I would enroll my family in a clinical trial. I mean, there is a tremendous importance of ethics and equipoise that goes into the clinical trials that are open at any medical center. And your doctor would never present to you a clinical trial that he or she would not enroll in himself or herself. That's so important to understand. And for pancreas cancer, which historically has been a fairly aggressive disease, it's important that our clinical trials provide very good treatment. So the patients need to be assured that what they're getting is the most effective treatment, so that typically our clinical trials make progress in baby steps, or what I call baby steps. So they take a treatment that we know has the best chance of working, and they add some additional little nuance or some additional treatment, maybe an experimental drug or a different way of combining drugs or a different way of combining chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery that the doctors feel will be better. So we think it will be better. We just haven't proven it yet. The other big advantage of a clinical trial is safety. And that's because you have, if you're on a clinical trial, there are research nurses. And we put my son in Catholic school when he was in middle school. It was actually the best thing for him because he had the nuns looking over him 24 hours a day, at least 6 days a week. And they simply wouldn't miss anything. There was nothing they could miss. And the analogy I make there is to the research nurse. The research nurses are incredible T-crossers and I-dotters. And if you're on a clinical trial, you will have usually 1 or 2 research nurses assigned to your case, meticulously evaluating every aspect of your care, along with the multidisciplinary physician team. So it provides an additional set, usually multiple sets of eyes and ears. So the likelihood that your treatment will be perfectly delivered is also enhanced when on a clinical trial. With regard to insurance and how to pay for a clinical trial, much of the medicine that is provided, in other words, the healthcare in general, your blood tests, your CT scans, and some of the medications are standard of care that you would be receiving anyway. So that typically would be billed to your insurance carrier. And then those aspects of the clinical trial that are not standard of care would be the responsibility of the investigators in the trial. And that's why clinical trials are so expensive. We have to pay for our research nurses, and we have to pay for anything that is not standard of care. So typically in a standard phase 2 trial, which involves a relatively small amount, a small number of patients. So if we say, for example, 40 to 50 patients in a phase 2 trial, that oftentimes will carry a price tag of approximately $1 million, if you can believe it.
Yes.
Just because we have to pay for all of the regulatory requirements, the clinical trials office that administrates all of this, our research nurses, and then any aspect of the trial which is not standard of care.
Okay, so then what responsibility falls onto the patient?
It should be virtually nothing. So the patient will still have a copay that they would normally have with standard of care. So they will have that. They will have their deductible. And of course, that will vary based upon whether they're in or out of network, whether they're using Medicare or commercial insurance. That will all vary a little bit.
Right.
But they should not have any additional expense related to the clinical trial, other than perhaps it is important to know that not every clinical trial is open at every institution. So many of the earlier phase clinical trials are institution specific in order to manage quality control. And therefore, if someone is on one of our phase 2 trials here at MCW, it is not going to be open at another institution in Chicago, may not be open in another institution on the East Coast. So to the extent that they would have to come to Milwaukee to receive those treatments, that would be out-of-pocket expense for travel and hotels.
Okay.